Hey, Slater Crusaders, this is a perfect example, this graph right here of what I was talking about. We've all seen the flatten the curve graph. So here's one, and there's no numbers, right? But specifically, so last segment, we talked mostly about the horizontal axis, the time, right? So you see it says, what does it say at the bottom there? Time since first case. But look at the end of the graph. There's no time. Is that 10 years from now? Is that a month from now? Is that a week? It doesn't say. But that's why we tried to put some time on that, some data, some numbers on that x-axis on the last segment there. Anyway, I want to talk about business. Business is affected by this. People affected by this. Just got numbers here that in Massachusetts, 19,884 people, 19,000, we'll call it 20,000 people, applied for unemployment on Monday. 18,000 applied for unemployment all of February in Massachusetts. So we had more people applied in a day for unemployment than did the entire last month. And that's just Massachusetts. It's going to be like that nationwide. So was it Mnuchin talked about potentially a 20% unemployment rate? Like, what are we talking about, 20%? So I want to talk about people and professions and industries and people affected by this. All right, so I wrote that on Twitter. I asked, I said, who's going to be affected by this? Or are you affected by this? And almost everyone came back and put it into three categories: travel, leisure, and entertainment. And there's no doubt about that. It's definitely true. Actually, let's sit on that for a second. So hotels, right? Who's staying at hotels right now? Anyone, right? So how long can hotels just sit empty with no one in them? Airlines, cruise ship companies, good night. What is the long-term future of the cruise industry? Right? And so there's because there's no cruises anywhere, right? There's no cruises out anymore. They all have to dock, and they all have to dock in weird places because all their normal docks are full. So there's cruise ships docked in Gulfport, Mississippi, right? Because they got nowhere else to go. They're just sitting there empty. As of this weekend, there are 40 U.S.-based cruises still out at sea, and a lot of them are coming home on Monday and coming home in the last couple of days here. But they got nowhere to put them. And then once they sit there, this is in Miami. In Miami, there's 10 ships docked. That's not a normal thing. And then once they come back, they're planning on shutting down for about 30 to 60 days. But as we talked about in the last segment, like, what are you kidding me, 60 days? I think people are just going to hop back on a cruise in 60 days. But here's my main point. It's not just industries. We can't just think about industries, like the cruise ship industry, as if it's a thing, or like that's the thing. Like as if that's like, oh, poor cruise ship industry. No, there's people. There's people in the cruise ship industry. All the people who work on cruise ships, chefs, entertainers, engineers, maintenance people, people who work at the cruise ship companies, right? Like booking trips, like travel agents and stuff like that. The people who are actually sailing this ship, right? The vacation bookers, all that stuff, right? It's not just the ship that's sitting in the dock. There's tons of people who don't have paychecks coming in. Same with airlines. Don't think of the airline as a thing, right? Don't feel bad for Delta. Think of the pilots, the flight attendants, the people who work at the airports. Think of the janitors at the airports who are not getting paid. Think of the people. Leisure, sporting events, people who work at the stadiums and the arenas, the concerts, the tech crews, the stagehands, theaters. Think of the ushers. Movie theaters. There's about 170,000 people who work in the movie theater industry. Not Hollywood, although that's its own thing, right? Who's going to be making movies and TV shows right now without a set and a crew who can gather together, right? But just in the movie theaters, like taking tickets and stuff, there's 170,000 people. Restaurants. We got a graph here. Did I send over the graph, guys, of OpenTable? So OpenTable, they made a line graph of the number of. I didn't send it. Yeah. Why don't I just tell you what it says? Line graph of the number in reservations per city. They broke it down by city over time. And as soon as the quarantines hit, they all just plummeted down to pretty much zero. No one's making reservations at restaurants anymore. But even then, I just want to challenge you to think about second and third order consequences of that. So not just the restaurant or the restaurant owners, and not even just the people who work at it. So like the waiters, although yes, and the chefs, right? But also everyone who supplies that, right? Everyone who supplies the restaurants with food, the truckers, the distributors, people who work at the warehouses to ship the supplies out. people who, I just had this vision, because if you just daydream about this for a couple minutes, you can come up with all these examples. But like there's a barbecue joint down the street, and who's the company that makes the plastic trays, right? And like ships all that. Like they're not gonna be doing that anymore because they're not open for a long time, as we talked about in the last segment. Anyone in any profession that requires people in groups to gather, right? So if you work in a museum, zoos, we mentioned sporting events. My son and I, we went to Monster Jam recently. When's that gonna be a thing again? When's Monster Jam gonna open up? All the car shows, fairs, festivals. See how this works? I saw, again, back to Hollywood, I saw Colbert did his opening monologue from his backyard. All right, we're gonna see stuff like that for a long time. But what percentage of people can't do their job from their backyard? Slater Crusaders, thanks for watching the first on YouTube. If you want more, like, subscribe, we got plenty.